Hello everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. It is that best time of year again. It is October. It is Bricktober. And to start the season off, we are opening up this, the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Nekron. Even though this doesn't have the Blackest Night logoing, branding on it, this is the final figure that we have from the Blackest Night storyline so far. Who knows? With the way that he was rolling out metal and death metal figures, now that that's sort of coming to an end, he may focus on Blackest Night. That seems something that's like right up his alley, and we may be getting more going along with this line, which I would really be all about that. I would really dig if we got more for this storyline. But this is also the first Mega-Fig from McFarlane Toys that I'll be opening up on this channel. I have a few more that we might be taking a look at later this month, one of them being Man-Bat, the other one being the Ice Giant from The Witcher. We'll have to wait and see what I can get to over the month, but I'm really excited about this. I just got this one in from Big Bad Toy Store maybe about a week ago, and I've been saving it for this. Just look at this thing, this Reaper-esque looking monstrosity in here. I can't wait to get him out of the box. I can't wait to put him up next to the rest of the Blackest Night figures and see how he goes with it. Because as you can see, I can barely get this box on camera. As you can see, spinning it around, we have some really good artwork just encompassing the entirety of the back of the box with this Blackest Night image right here. It even says Nekron, Blackest Night. We have Green Lantern, Flash, I think that's Saturn Girl, Kid Flash, no, not Saturn Girl, I forget who that is. I can't remember her name. But Kid Flash, Connor Kent, Superboy, and I'm guessing that's Superman being covered up right there. Oh, that's driving me crazy. I can't remember who that is. I can't remember her name. Ugh. But just look at this evil personified, this Black Lantern over here. This looks fantastic. So that's the back of the box. On the side here, we have Nekron with the window. Then on this side, big Horkin name, Nekron, Blackest Night. And then up top, just more window with the DC Multiverse logo on it. So without further ado, this is just basically his DC Multiverse branding boxing, just big and biggened. So without further ado now, let's get this open and let's get him out of the box and let's take a look at McFarlane Toys, DC Multiverse, Blackest Night, Nekron. Okay, here he is, Nekron out of the box, and Nekron is a big, big boy, and the thing that I like about him is that he is very tall, but he's not overly buff. He's very lanky and just looks fantastic. And putting the tape measure to him, we can see that to the top of his big, crusty skull head, Nekron is 10 inches tall. Now, one thing that I'm going to point out right now is that you may notice that his right foot is back further than his left foot. This is because McFarlane Toys have an issue with stability. We know that it's not always the easiest thing to get them standing in a neutral pose. Nekron is no different, but he is hampered even more so by this weighty cloak, cape thing, robe thing that he's wearing, which we'll take a look at when we bring him up closer. But I was taking longer than should have been necessary just to get him to stand up straight with no stands, with no accessories, and not having an overly forward lean to him, that I had to stagger his feet there just so that he could get standing upright and not falling over. So that is the first issue that I have with him, but if this is all I have to do to get him to stand for how good the rest of it looks, it's a small price to pay, but it is worth noting that the issue with McFarlane Toys stability is even more prevalent with this big boy right here. Okay, now bringing him forward, the first thing we're going to take a look at is his face sculpt, and just like the rest of the Blackest Nights figures, as a matter of fact, with any figure that has this sort of aesthetic to it, whether it's the Blackest Night, whether it was admittedly even some of the metal and death metal figures, whether it's Spawn, Mortal Kombat, this kind of face sculpt McFarlane excels at. Just look at even the gap in there. That the open mouth isn't just painted in, it's actually carved in like that, and I love that. I love these sort of pearlescent white eyes. It makes them just glow on a dark skull head like this, and then we have the Black Lantern emblem just anchored right there on his noggin. This whole thing looks fantastic. And then the tattering of these robes, his open chest, his black heart. This is a little soft right in here. I guess it's supposed to be like some sort of, I don't know, ectoplasm, some kind of goop. That's a little soft on the paint app and his ribs right here, but the rest of it, it all looks terrific. And I love this wash they put on his collar right here that just really makes it look aged, really makes it look worn, really makes it look just battered and used. Then on the back, the robe cuts down low. We can see his vertebrae coming through his back. We can see his spinal column coming through his back. This is great. And then this piece is supposed to look like, that big Reaper hood that he has just folded back. Then the sinewyiness of his arms. Again, we have this collar, this bracelet matching his collar. And this is a very soft rubber. And you can see that being in the packaging, that some of it has sort of bent out of shape. So we would have to put some heat to it, some hot water, but it is very soft rubber. I feel like it's not going to break. That would be something very easy for us to fix. We have the wraps on the arms right here. And again, continuing this zombified, sinewy arms right here. This whole thing looks great. The sculpt on this looks great. Like I said, things like this is where McFarlane really excels. The only bit of color we get to it other than his bracelet, his bracer, and his collar right here is this belt going around the robe in this Blackest Night logo, or I'm sorry, not Blackest Night logo, Black Lantern logo that he has going on here. The legs, honestly, is where it gets a little boring. But, and I'm trying to remember the comic, and it's been so long since I've read Blackest Night, I don't think he really had anything going on, let's get these out of the way, with the legs down here, that they were just black leggings and some black boots. So if this is following the comic, and this is the best that Todd could have done, I get it. I don't mind it. I almost wish he would have just had this for the legs as well. Like just these weak, sinewy, zombified legs coming down into these high top boots. But I do think that is pretty much how he appears in the comic. And then his robes right here with just the folds of the robes. This is a very hard rubber. This is a very soft rubber, but it's a very heavy rubber. And this is why he kept falling over when you try and get him standing in neutral positions. But the overall aesthetic for this whole thing is just beautiful in its grimness and its grotesqueness. And I love it. This is, as I keep saying, this is something where McFarlane really, really excels. And he's great. Like he almost makes me want to get the Omega Spawn figure that just came out and have like Omega Spawn be one of Nekron's minions. I don't know. I don't collect Spawn, but that Omega Spawn figure I think would look good next to him. Just an army of like these big Horkin demons would be fantastic. And then you get the Kikimora. Oh yeah, you get the Kikimora from The Witcher and you set it up right next to him as his battle pet or his mount or something. I'm really getting into this guy. Now, looking at the articulation, we're going to start at the head and we're going to work our way down. We're looking at the articulation. The head will do a full 360 spin. Okay. He can kind of look up and he can look down. And since this is a very soft rubber, it doesn't hinder his movement as much as you think it would. But he can also get some really good head tilt, some abnormally cocked head tilt right there, which is great for a figure like him. Also, I want to point out, and I forgot to mention this, that this collar, while it's loose around here, it is anchored to the back of his neck right here, so it won't constantly be moving around or flopping around while you're trying to pose him, that you do get a little bit of movement out of it when you're trying to have him look down or look up, and it's a soft rubber, so it'll move with you, but it's not going to flop around. It is anchored in place. Now, coming down to the arms, we can do a full 360, but we do have to have them come out a little to get past the sleeves, because while it is a soft rubber, once again, it's still a very heavy rubber, and there's a lot of it right here, even though it is frayed in here. And you can see the separation, that's not a rip, that's just the way that it was molded, molded. So we have to put his arm out a little to get around. And come on, there we go. Fully around, no butterfly joint, but he can get up past 90. He has a bicep swivel. He has some double jointed elbow with some really good travel. He has the pivot hinge pivot hands that even with this one, with this cuff on here, once again, it's a very soft rubber. You can still get some really good movement out of his hands here. So I'm always happy about that. Now we come down to the waist, and there's obviously no ab crunch, no nothing cut in here because we had to make way for this. Also, I believe underneath these robes there is a ball joint because you can get some side to side out of him. You can get some back. You can get a little bit forward before tilting at the waist. But this heavy robe, I just noticed that there's a break in it that it looks like the bottom and the top is separate because it's popping up out of the belt. I don't know. Yeah, the top and the bottom is separate, but it looks like it's just that the glue came undone from the one side because it does look like the rest of this is all glued into the belt. So it looks like the top piece and the bottom piece are two separate pieces, and I may have just loosened mine just from trying to get it cranking on his waist. But you can see that because of this belt, because of the heavy robes, his waist doesn't really do much for movement. And this is kind of in the same vein as what I was talking about with Venger on the last Hasbro video that I did, that I really don't mind that there's not a whole lot of waist movement and that his legs are going to be kind of traffic coned by his robe right here because it's Nekron. He's not going to be getting into any low stances. He's not going to be doing any high kicks, okay? But getting to the legs, his leg can come forward fairly well, but if you turn it, you can get it up even higher. You can get up even higher right there because he does have that hidden joint at the hip, up here at the hip, that you can get some decent movement out of it, actually more than what I was expecting for a guy this big. And his crotch piece here is that very soft rubber, so it will help when you're trying to lift it. But once again, make sure you don't deform it, make sure you don't rip it. Now, if this was out of the way, and let's try and get this out of the way, his legs would actually be able to come up really far. But because of the robe, it's going to weigh it down and hinder the movement. Also, without the robe in the way, he has double jointed knees with some really decent travel to them, as we can see. You saw the hip swivel. He has the ankle swivel right there. He has the ankle swivel. Really rocks back. Really rocks forward. And you can probably hear those detents in there. And the detents are another problem when you're trying to stand him, that because of where the detents land and where the clicks are, it's hard to get him to lean just a little bit forward to offset the weight balance of his robes right here. And then, of course, toe articulation. Okay, starting with accessories, of course, Nekron comes with a stand, as all the McFarlane figures do, with the DC logo tampoed on it. And I've heard some people, I don't know if complain is the right word, but they're questioning why these Mega-Figs still come with a stand. My first thought is, it's a free stand. Why are we going to be upset about it? Because even if you don't want to use it for these Mega-Figs, you probably have some other figure, maybe not a McFarlane figure specifically, but you probably have some sort of other figure that might need a stand with it. The other thing is that even though just because this is a Mega-Fig, doesn't mean it doesn't have its place. Because as I showed you before, as I told you before at the beginning, that trying to get him standing in a neutral position without doing anything funky with his feet is pretty impossible because of how much the robe weighs him back. But if you take this stand, even if you only want to put it on one foot here, you take this stand, he'll stand up in a neutral position because it gives him something to lean back on. Or you could even just have both of his feet on there, and it still gives him something to lean back on, so that if you do have limited space on the shelf and you can't give him any wide stance or anything like that, you can still use the figure stand to stabilize him. And then, of course, he comes with his collector's card, Nekron Blackest Night, and this really upsets me because this is a beautiful piece of art right here, but you can see that I kind of damaged mine when I was taking it out of the packaging, and That's on me. That's not the packaging. That's not the way it was done. That's all on me. Out of all of the ones to do this to, I'm really upset that I did it to this one. And I know there are some collectors that don't keep these cards, so they sell them online. I might actually buy an extra card for this just so that I have an undamaged card to add to the collection. And then, of course, we have his bio on the back right here. And then last but not least, we have Nekron's Scythe, and this is fantastic. First of all, look at the sculpt. I love how this looks like some black iron right here on the blade. And you can see the edging, the sharpening of the blade right in there. But what I wasn't expecting and what I really appreciate is that the handle looks like it's made out of wood, just like a scythe. And you have these little wraps right here at the midsection, and you have a buttstock right here at the bottom. That this looks great, and of course we have more pearlescent white paint in there for the lantern opening. The only thing I'm not sure is, and I've seen all of them done this way, if this is a mistake or if the lantern is supposed to be cocked off to the side like that, because even looking at the photo or the picture, we don't really get a good idea. And I looked at the picture in the back of the box too. Still doesn't show. I don't remember if the top of the lantern is supposed to be cocked to the side like that. The blade is bent, but that came from packaging. It is a very soft rubber, as you can see, that once again, putting some heat on it or putting it in some warm water will be able to reform that no problem. Now, the head is very sturdy. This part is very sturdy, but this wooden handle, like a lot of McFarlane figures, it's very rubbery, and it's a little bit more resilient than some of the other things that we got. But because of how heavy the head of the scythe is, I think it still has that issue of having a rubbery handle. But I think we would be able to take care of that, either just having him hold it and planting it in the ground, or giving him a two-handed grip on it, that he only has really one single gripping hand, and that's his right hand. You can see that it's sort of made into this little fist with the hole in it, the gripping hole for it. The other hand is sort of just like an evil, menacing hand. And with this, we just run it down in there. And there we go. He has a grip on it. It's a fairly good grip, but you can see it does weigh his arms down. So really what you'd have to do is bring it all the way down. Can't get his whole body on camera. You have to set it up, bring it all the way down, and then he can sort of just plant it on the ground while he's standing. And now for size comparison, here he is next to the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Build-A-Figure Atrocitus and Frost King. And I like this because I like that one Atrocitus from the Blackest Night Build-A-Figure wave is still shorter than Nekron, that he'll have to look up to Nekron. But I also like the comparison because it really shows you how there's three different tiers of figures right now for the McFarlane line. That you have the regular tier, the Build-A-Figure tier, and then the Mega-Figure. That for an extra $5 per figure, Atrocitus and the Frost King came out to like $20 figures, and it gives you a whole lot of figure for 20 bucks. But then the mega figures are still bigger than that. Here he is beside the Marvel Select Thanos and Watcher, and just because I threw Lady Death in there as well. Here he is beside McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Blackest Night Deathstorm and Black Lantern Batman. Here he is beside Mattel Masterverse New Eternia He-Man and Skeletor. Here he is beside McFarlane Toys The Witcher 3 Geralt of Rivia and Eridan Brioc Glass. Here he is beside Lanyard Toys City Hunter Predator and Xenomorph Drone. Here he is beside Jazzware's Spartan Collection Master Chief and Noble 6. And finally, here he is beside Hasbro Marvel Legends Lady Deathstrike, Red Hand Ninja, G.I. Joe Classified Cobra Trooper, and me from the Valaverse Action Force Steel Brigade. Welcome to Bricktober, everybody, where we take a look at all things ghosts, goblins, things that go bump in the night, generally anything having to do with Halloween. And Nekron is one heck of a way to start off the month. I don't do a lot of themed months throughout the year, but Bricktober is definitely one of my favorites. And to me, it kicks off the holiday season for the end of the year. For being my first Mega figure, I'm really, really liking Nekron. I like his size, I like the look of him, the sculpt, I like that ripped open chest. The paint apps on his chest, like right above where his black heart is, that's a little soft. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more detail in there, but other than that, I'm really liking the look of this figure. He's grotesque. This is something that is right in McFarlane's wheelhouse, so it doesn't surprise me how good this guy came out. I am hoping that eventually we might start to get more figures for the Blackest Night line. It wouldn't surprise me if this is it, but I would really like to get more to go along with this. I like his scythe, and the scythe really surprised me because I thought the handle was just going to be something black, something that just goes with the rest of the look of it. I was pleasantly surprised to see that it's basically a dead tree branch, gives it a little bit more of that, undead, supernatural, the Reaper has come type feel to it. I do wish that the handle was maybe a little thicker so that he could get a better grip on it everywhere, because as it stands, the handle is inconsistent in its denseness and its thickness going up and down the length of it. So there are some spots where you might want him to hold it, but it would be a little loose. But other than that, I really, really like the look of his scythe. He doesn't come with any other accessories, but hey, most Mega Figs that McFarlane Toys puts out doesn't come with any accessories, so I'll take this one. He looks really good with the rest of the Blackest Night wave, and that was important because, hey, you know you're going to be posing him with the rest of those figures. I really like that he's bigger than Atrocitus. When I first got him out of the pack, I thought, how much bigger is he going to be? I was actually surprised to see that he's kind of like a head and a half taller than that Build-A-Figure. Stability is a problem. He's very back heavy and he wants to keep falling backwards unless you get his legs spread out a little bit like I did at the beginning of the video. You can use the figure stand to support him, but I totally understand why some people don't want to do that and they may just want to put him in a neutral pose minus the stand. But if that's not an option, at least we know you still can do it by just putting that little plastic disc underneath him. Even if you're not into the Blackest Night line, even if you're not into the DC Multiverse line, Nekron has that look that he would fit in so well with many different types of collections. Like, he would actually look really good mixed in with the Spawn line. He would also look really good mixed in with something like The Witcher. Or, I don't know, maybe even fit him in with your Masters of the Universe line. He just has that general evil, undead Reaper look that could be used for so many different things. Out of everything on this figure, I really, really like his head sculpt. I like that decrepit skull look. I like the teeth. I love that open mouth snarling look that he has. I really like the pearlescent white in his eyes that just makes them glow against that gray black skull of his. So this was our start to Bricktober. I hope you'll come back for more. I have a lot of stuff this year to take a look at. Everything from Universal Monsters to DC Multiverse, and there's going to be more thrown in there as well. And I'm really, really looking forward to it this year. So until the next time, my friends, play well, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.